The British Isles have a long and storied history of immigration. From the Romans, Angles, Saxons, and Jutes to the later influxes of European Jews and Irish migrants, the movement of people to and from the UK has been a consistent theme throughout its history. However, for much of the 20th century, net migration to the UK was relatively stable and close to zero. It is only in the past few decades that the UK has seen a significant rise in net migration, a development that has sparked intense debate and widespread discussion. In this article, we will explore the complexities of immigration in the UK, analysing the historical context, the economic and social impacts, and the challenges and opportunities that migration presents. We will critically assess the commonly held views and misconceptions about immigration and offer a nuanced understanding of its role in shaping the UK's future. To fully grasp the current immigration landscape, it is essential to understand the historical context. The British Isles have always been a melting pot of different cultures and peoples. The Romans established a strong presence in Britain during the 1st century AD, bringing with them soldiers, traders, and settlers from across the Roman Empire. Following the Roman withdrawal, the Angles, Saxons, and Jutes migrated to Britain, laying the foundations for the modern English nation. In the centuries that followed, Britain continued to experience waves of immigration, including the arrival of the Normans in 1066 and the influx of Huguenots in the 17th century. The 19th and early 20th centuries saw significant migration from Ireland and Eastern Europe, particularly among Jewish communities fleeing persecution. Despite these movements, net migration to the UK remained relatively stable throughout much of the 20th century. The post-war period saw some migration from Commonwealth countries, such as India, Jamaica, and Pakistan, but this was often balanced by emigration, with many Britons leaving for countries like Canada, Australia, and the United States. It is only in the past few decades that net migration to the UK has risen substantially. The end of colonial rule, global economic shifts, and changes in immigration policy have all contributed to this increase. Since 1962, immigration from Commonwealth countries has been a significant source of population growth. For example, between 1962 and the late 1970s, approximately 2.2 million people from Commonwealth countries, including India and Jamaica, migrated to the UK. However, this period also saw considerable emigration, with many Britons seeking better opportunities abroad. It wasn't until the late 1990s and early 2000s that net migration to the UK began to increase markedly. This trend was driven by several factors, including the expansion of the European Union, which allowed for greater freedom of movement, and the UK's need to address labour shortages in key industries. In 2023, net migration to the UK peaked at 700,000, representing 1% of the total population. This was the highest level on record and reflected long-term trends, such as labour market shortages, as well as short-term factors, including the end of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Ukraine war, and high numbers of student visas issued in 2022. To understand the rise in net migration, it is essential to examine the underlying drivers. In 2023, the largest reason for migration to the UK was work and work dependence. This category includes individuals who moved to the UK for employment purposes and their immediate family members. The second largest reason was students and their dependents, reflecting the UK's status as a leading destination for international education. Asylum seekers also contributed to net migration, with 88,000 applications in 2023. However, the number of unregistered migrants entering the UK via small boat crossings was relatively small, at 29,000, accounting for only 4% of net migration and just 0.05% of the population. The increase in small boat crossings has been particularly noticeable since the Brexit vote in 2016. In 2024, the UK saw record numbers of these crossings, highlighting the ongoing challenges of managing irregular migration. One of the most contentious aspects of immigration is its impact on the economy. Critics often argue that immigration drives down wages, increases unemployment, and places a strain on public services. However, a closer examination of the evidence suggests that these concerns are often overstated. Legal migrants to the UK are eligible for healthcare and most benefits, but they also contribute to government finances through taxes. Studies suggest that European Union (EU) migrants, in particular, have been net contributors to government finances. This is largely because most EU migrants are of working age and are less likely to bring family members or retire in the UK. In contrast, non-EU migrants tend to have a negative impact on public finances, though this impact is still better than that of UK-born citizens. A report by the UK's Migration Advisory Committee supports these findings, stating that each additional migrant from the European Economic Area (EEA) is expected to make a net contribution of around £78,000 over their lifetime. This contribution is particularly significant given the aging population and the increasing pressure on public services. When discussing the economic impact of immigration, it is worth considering comparisons with other countries. A 2018 study by the Danish government, for example, claimed that non-Western migrants to Denmark had a negative effect on public finances. While this finding may not be directly applicable to the UK, it underscores the importance of considering the broader context when assessing the economic impact of migration. The Organisation for Economic County Operation and Development (OECD) model suggests that high levels of net migration can lead to lower government borrowing and improved public finances. This model takes into account the fact that an increase in the population can boost economic activity, create jobs, and generate additional tax revenue. One of the most common concerns about immigration is that it will lead to lower wages by increasing the supply of labor. This argument is based on the assumption that while the supply of labor increases, demand remains static. However, this view overlooks the fact that an increase in population also leads to greater economic activity and higher demand for goods and services. The Bank of England conducted a study on the effect of immigration on wages, finding that a 10% rise in migration levels causes wages to fall by a barely noticeable 0.3%. For unskilled workers, the impact may be slightly greater, with a 2% fall in wages for every 10% rise in migration. This is broadly consistent with other economic studies, which suggest that the overall impact of immigration on wages is limited. Interestingly, one study found that the biggest negative effect of immigration was on existing migrants themselves. This finding highlights the complexity of the issue and suggests that the impact of migration on wages may be more nuanced than is often assumed. Another major concern related to immigration is its effect on housing prices and rents. Over the past 2 years, rents in the UK have increased by 22%, and high levels of net migration are often cited as a contributing factor. In 2018, the Ministry of Housing used a model developed by the University of Reading to assess the impact of immigration on house prices. The model suggested that for every 1% rise in the number of households, house prices would rise by 2%. Based on this model, the 4.8 million increase in foreign-born households between 1991 and 2016 could theoretically be responsible for house prices being 21% higher than they would have been otherwise. However, this model represents an extreme view of the impact of population growth on house prices. The Migration Observatory at the University of Oxford points to 3 studies that suggest the relationship is much closer to a 1% increase in immigration leading to a 1% increase in house prices. Therefore, if net migration is around 300,000, approximately 0.4% of the population, it could mean that house price inflation is 0.4% higher than it would have been otherwise. While the effect of migration on house prices is not negligible, it is important to recognize that other factors, such as housing supply, interest rates, and economic growth, also play a significant role. It is overly simplistic to blame rising house prices solely on immigration. High levels of net migration contribute to gross domestic product (GDP) growth by increasing the size of the economy. More people mean more workers, more consumers, and more economic activity. In this sense, migration has helped to support the UK's GDP growth over the past decade. However, GDP growth figures can be misleading if they are not considered in the context of population growth. While the UK's GDP growth has been relatively strong compared to other G7 countries over the past 14 years, GDP per capita growth has been much lower. This suggests that the benefits of economic growth have not been evenly distributed and that many people have seen little improvement in their living standards. One of the largest contributors to net migration in the UK is the influx of foreign students. These students make a significant contribution to the UK economy, paying around 20% of total university revenue. Foreign students also benefit the UK economy by approximately £42 billion annually, making them a major positive factor in the balance of payments. If foreign students were removed from the equation, it would increase costs for domestic students, who are currently subsidized by the higher fees paid by international students. Moreover, universities would face severe financial pressures, as foreign students are one of the few sources of revenue that help them avoid operating losses. The UK's National Health Service, NHS, is one of the most heavily impacted areas when it comes to the effects of immigration. With nearly 7 million people on waiting lists, the NHS is under significant strain, and migration has been critical in filling many vacancies within the healthcare system. In 2022, 16.5% of NHS staff in England were of non-British nationality. The same applies to care workers, who also play a vital role in supporting the aging population. Without migration, particularly from the European Union and Commonwealth countries, the NHS would struggle to cope with the current demand for services. As the UK population continues to rise, this trend is expected to continue. However, falling fertility rates could lead to a shortage of young people in the coming decades. This demographic shift will likely increase pressure on the government to encourage higher levels of migration to maintain a balanced and functioning workforce. One of the most debated issues regarding immigration is its impact on unemployment. Critics often argue that immigrants take jobs away from native-born workers, leading to higher unemployment rates. However, the evidence suggests otherwise. In the UK, high levels of migration have been consistent with falling unemployment rates. Migration is often an economic response to labour shortages, and the UK has faced shortages in critical sectors such as healthcare, agriculture, and transportation. For example, there has been a significant shortage of lorry drivers, fruit pickers, care workers, teachers, and doctors in recent years. Migration has helped to fill these gaps, ensuring that essential services continue to function. If the UK were to experience a significant economic slowdown and a rise in unemployment, it is likely that migration levels would decrease, as fewer opportunities would be available. Beyond the economic impacts, immigration has far-reaching effects on British society. These effects are complex and multifaceted, and they touch on issues such as social cohesion, cultural identity, and political discourse. One of the challenges associated with high levels of immigration is the potential for social tensions and a lack of integration. When large numbers of people from different cultural backgrounds settle in a new country, there can be challenges related to language, customs, and values. However, many migrants have successfully integrated into British society, contributing to its diversity and cultural richness. The UK has a long history of successfully integrating immigrants, from the Huguenots in the 17th century to the Windrush generation in the mid-20th century. While there are undoubtedly challenges associated with integration, there are also many success stories of migrants who have become an integral part of British society. Immigration has also played a significant role in enriching British culture. Migrants bring with them new ideas, traditions, and perspectives, contributing to a more vibrant and diverse society. From food and music to art and literature, the cultural contributions of immigrants are evident throughout the UK. This cultural diversity is one of the UK's strengths, fostering innovation and creativity. However, It is essential to strike a balance between embracing diversity and ensuring that there is a shared sense of national identity and values. Immigration has become a highly politicized issue in the UK, often serving as a focal point for broader concerns about globalization, economic change, and national identity. The Brexit referendum in 2016 was, in many ways, a reflection of these concerns, with immigration playing a central role in the debate. Public perception of immigration is often shaped by political rhetoric and media coverage, which can sometimes exaggerate the challenges and overlook the benefits of migration. It is crucial for policymakers and the public to engage in a rational and informed discussion about immigration, one that is based on evidence rather than fear or prejudice. As the UK moves forward, it will need to navigate the complexities of immigration policy in a rapidly changing world. Several key challenges will need to be addressed. The UK will need to strike a balance between meeting its economic needs and addressing social concerns related to immigration. This will require a nuanced approach that recognizes the benefits of migration while also addressing the legitimate concerns of those who feel left behind. The increase in small boat crossings and unregistered migration poses significant challenges for the UK. While these numbers are relatively small compared to overall migration figures, they have become a focal point for public concern. The government will need to develop effective policies to manage irregular migration while upholding its international obligations to protect refugees and asylum seekers. As the UK becomes increasingly diverse, it will be essential to promote social cohesion and integration. This will require investment in education, language training, and community-building initiatives that help migrants and native-born citizens alike to thrive in a multicultural society. The impact of immigration on housing and infrastructure will continue to be a significant issue. The government will need to invest in affordable housing, transportation, and public services to ensure that the benefits of migration are shared widely and that pressures on local communities are mitigated. Immigration has played a crucial role in shaping the UK, both historically and in the present day. While it is not without its challenges, it is also a source of economic vitality, cultural enrichment, and social dynamism. The debate over immigration often reflects deeper concerns about the future of the UK in a rapidly changing world. It is essential for this debate to be informed by evidence and grounded in a rational understanding of the complexities of migration. Ultimately, the question of whether immigration is a problem or a solution for the UK depends on how it is managed. With thoughtful policies, a commitment to integration, and a recognition of the contributions of migrants, the UK can continue to benefit from the positive impacts of immigration while addressing the challenges it presents.